welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started here, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to get a hold of me or the rest of the From the Shadows podcast crew, you can find us on Facebook at From the Shadows podcast. You can find us on our forum page at After the Shadows. You can send me a message at Shane Grove Author on Instagram, or the From the Shadows podcast Instagram page, or the good old-fashioned way, go to the website From the Shadows podcast and hit the contact button, send me an email. I'll read it. I'll get back to you, especially if you have a story you want to share, because we love to hear personal experiences. We also have a lot of new content up on our Patreon page, including the short, I guess it's short, it's 70, 80 pages, story called Bigfoot versus Yeti by our very own Judge. Judge and I worked on the story. He actually wrote it, and it's free to all of our Patreon members. And if you are really hard up for entertainment and you want to go download it, I think it's fairly cheap on our website. You can go to the store page as you go to buy some merch too. Boy, this is a shameless plug for all things From the Shadows, isn't it? My guess is she's shaking her head. She totally understands. But if you want to go check it out, I'm sure the Judge would appreciate it as he begins his career as an author, or maybe ends his career as an author. Who knows? So, so with that, our guest is somebody that we met at Monster Fest, and all of our loyal listeners are probably like, would they stop talking about Monster Fest? But the Monster Fest is a gift that keeps on giving. Okay, kind of like the Jelly of the Month Club. We met a lot of really cool people, got a lot of eyewitness people who stopped by our table that we're going to be interviewing here. So, and this is just the first of many. So, if you're a big fan of Jim Harold's show, I think her story that she shared at Monster Fest is on the campfire stories that he has. But we're going to dig in way deeper and find out more about her experiences. So joining us with some crazy good, really overselling this, right? She's like,
you are. I was like, oh no.
Joining us is Lexi Maples. Lexi,
Shane, thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
I hope it is fun, because this big introduction, I feel like if we're just going to disappoint everybody right now, we'll just hang up and let them.
You should have been like, this is a really lame story, and I don't really know why we chose her, but
so, well, I had that down and I scratched that off because I thought that would be a terrible way to start everybody's Friday.
I appreciate the respect.
So Lexi, tell us. Let's get into your experiences and why the great Jim Harold. And I get a lot. Like, should we be promoting? Does Jim need his podcast promoted?
Jim need promotion?
Probably not. But why you were asked to share some stuff on Jim's podcast, and what you didn't get to share on his podcast. We want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim, obviously, he did a live campfire at Monster Fest, and I'm Team Monster Fest, so I never get tired of talking about Monster Fest. And I had a booth. I sell art, and my husband, he did the first 30 minutes of the campfire, and then he came back. He goes, I'll watch the table. You go finish the campfire, because we're both big campfire fans. And I sneak in, and I sit in the front, and someone's finishing their story, and Jim goes, well, I had 2 more people, but life happens. So if anybody has a story, write down a snippet on this index card, and his assistant will read it and see if it's worthy of telling. So the only snippet I wrote was ghost at boot camp. I think was my one sentence.
Wow, that's a tagline right there. That is
hook, line, and sinker. It was great. So first off, I'll start with, I definitely believe in ghosts. Supernatural, those like The Conjuring and Annabelle, those movies, those put the most fear into me. I love slashers, but because I believe in that realm, it kind of hits home in a different way. But I'm also, if I can debunk something and maybe, just a reflection off of something, or if I can, I'm all about debunking it, but I do think that dimension exists. So I was a U.S. Navy sailor, and boot camp is in the Great Lakes of Illinois. It's about 45 minutes from Chicago, and it lasts about 8 to 10 weeks. This was probably week 6, and we're split up into divisions of 95 to 100 people at that point. Normally more, but this was around COVID, so they had them smaller. And along with learning the Navy ways, the lingo, the uniform, you're also taught how to march in formation. And kind of much like a marching band. You would walk in lines horizontally, but then you also stay in lines vertically. And it's all, can you follow directions? End of the day. And this was about 6 weeks in. We were 7:30 at night, and we were in this gymnasium type room, auditorium type place. And the row in front of me was struggling. And my RDCs, which was the Navy version of drill sergeants, essentially, they took them aside and were working on this one line. So I'm in my own mind and, just trying to pass the time while standing still. And I looked up and I noticed that there were glass windows up, like right below the ceiling, much like if you were in a fitness center looking down on a track, or maybe looking down on a basketball court. That's what these glass windows kind of looked like. And I could see that there were offices, but there was just one light on. And that's weird. It was the weekend, so I doubt there was any officers up there. At the same time, I was also thinking, man, I wonder if this place is haunted, because why not? It's an old, historic military base. And I was thinking, this is the part in the movies where the ghost of a chief is, just fed up with the recruits messing up over and over again. And, my mind just was entertaining itself. And so I look back up at the windows and I see something white kind of just like turn the corner. And I think, that's weird, but I'm tired. It's week 6 of boot camp. It was nothing. So then we got to a point in our practice, or not rehearsal, I'll just say practice, where we say the Sailor's Creed. And the Sailor's Creed is essentially a poem or chant that we have to memorize. And we do a little division trick, say the Sailor's Creed, and move on. So on with that, an old ghost chief being mad about, I was like, we keep messing up. This is not going to appease this made up ghost chief that I made in my head. So we get back in line, and I feel a tap on the back of my shoulder. And I turn around and I ask the girl behind me, I go, what did I mess up? She goes, what are you talking about? I go, you tapped my shoulder, like in a way as if I was, not in line. And she goes, no, we're still waiting for that front line, to get their stuff together. And I look back up and I see another white thing go around the corner. And so I was like, great. And this girl was not a jokester, not I didn't tap you. This, she was just as bored as I was. And so I kind of put together, I go, I'm not saying the white thing that was up front was connected to that, but I have never felt a tap on my shoulder like that, and proceeded to go on with the rest of my day, or the rest of my night. And I remember getting back to our compartment that night, and a drill sergeant in training, I asked her, I was like, hey, have you ever, been like seen any ghosts or, anything in that hall we were just in? And she gets so mad. She goes, Maples, why would you even put that out there? I got to walk to my car alone. And she just goes off on me because I suggested the fact that there might be ghosts in that hall that we were rehearsing in. So that was my first kind of interaction with something I couldn't explain on a naval base, which I've got 2 follow-up stories.
Well, I want to ask.
Please.
So the white thing that you saw was up in the window?
Yeah, it was if you know how you can see, like if you're looking at a hallway, but then you see where the hallway turns. I could see that corner as if someone or something was going around the corner. But the way it looked was like a, you know, I don't know, a man or a woman in dress whites. That's like, it was that kind of white, like sailor dress white. So I'm kind of like the Cracker Jack guy, like what he wears. And
Oh,
so,
so okay, so you're not saying like a misty white.
no,
You're saying
like,
somebody dressed in their uniform white.
yes. And so it was a weekend. I think it was like a Saturday night. And so there was no officers don't work on the weekends. Spoiler alert. And so I knew that there was no reason that there would be anybody up there. So I saw the white that was like a uniform white kind of take the corner. And mind you, sailors, if we don't have to wear our dress uniforms, we won't. So it's not like you don't see people walking around in dress uniforms unless there's a funeral or a ceremony. So it's not like, everyone was in dress whites. We were all in, uh, my family likes to call them fatigues, camo working uniforms. Uh, my division and my drill sergeants, they were all in their working uniforms. So there was no reason for someone at 7:30 at night to be in their whites.
And then it's almost like you got tapped on the shoulder to get your attention back up there to see it. Is that kind of how
Yes.
you felt? Okay.
Yeah. And I had someone come up to me after, I told the short version of that on Jim's podcast. And a woman came up to me and she goes, "Do you think that whatever tapped you put the thought of the, you know, chief ghost being unhappy with recruits like in your head?" And I go, "I've never thought that. And I haven't stopped thinking about that since. Like, that, let's just say, let's call it a chief, was like, all right, these recruits are very disappointing." And then I kind of mocked it. And he goes, "Oh, you want to mock it? Okay, see what happens."
And and so that girl behind you, or the woman behind you, did she when you said, "Hey, you tap me," she didn't put up a fight or anything like?
No, she just looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "Well, you tapped me. Like, am I not in line?" And she goes, "No, we're still waiting for the front row to do their thing." And she's like, "No," like just the look of, it was more like annoyed, like she was in her own little world. And I was like, "Hey," I said, "No, like, turn back around. Stop bothering me."
So she didn't even address it because she didn't do it, and she was just like, I'm not even
And
gonna.
it wasn't like someone else did it, like, "Oh, that was Jones or something." It was, no, like nobody tapped you.
Wow, that's kind of in that whole the idea that those two things are connected, like right where you're at and then up in the window are connected. And that's totally, when you're telling the story, is what I thought is something's like, okay, I'm going to get her attention and show her here I am
To look
again.
back up. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Holy
Um,
smokes.
so then it gets creepier. Um, in Pensacola is where I went for A school. I was an electrician. Uh, and my husband, he moved to Pensacola. He wasn't military, but he would come visit me on base. So I'd get done with class and we'd go running. There's a lighthouse on the Pensacola Navy base. It was about 3 miles from the barracks. And so this was as the sun was setting because it was hot. It was about August. And we ran up to the lighthouse. Um, and I got my EMF reader on my phone out because, I like to hurt my feelings and scare myself. And we were messing around with this lighthouse. And the lighthouse has a lighthouse keeper inn. Um, you know, every lighthouse has a little house where the keeper stays. Because of COVID, the keeper's house has been locked down. No one's been in it for like at least a year. I don't even it's the lighthouse is open and we went up there all the time, the gift shop, but that keeper house was never open. So we thought we'd go, just take a look around. And we had ran 3 miles, got to the keeper's house, and we kind of peek in the window. I see a curtain move all the way to the side, not as if the AC was on, but not like, just the curtain moved all the way over to the left. And I could only see by like the moonlight hitting the window because no one's in there, nothing's. And at that point, after, goofing around my EMF app, and I go, I think I need to get back to the barracks. And I take off. And so my husband takes off with me, and we get about halfway back. And he goes, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to spook you, but it could have been the AC." And he goes, "Did you see the curtain move?" And I go, "Yes, but I didn't want to scare you." He goes, "I didn't want to scare you." And so we continued running back. And before, I went in for the night, we, there was no explanation whatsoever. Because no one's been in that keeper's house for like a year. Like, I don't even think employees, they managed the gift shop, and there was some outside stuff, but that keeper's, I've never seen anything like that. And I chalked it up to, oh, it's just, it moved way harsher, like more aggressively than if the AC had kicked on. And I was just telling my that self because I knew we were alone in the dark. Uh, but that was spooky.
Now, wait a second. For somebody who has an EMF reader on their phone, and something happens like that right in front of you, and you take off running, I mean,
Well, I mean, I had to get back. Like, we didn't drive up there. How else was I
okay.
No,
So,
you're right. I went looking for it and it showed up.
yeah.
Doesn't
So,
mean it wasn't scary.
yes, yes. And that is a reminder to all the listeners, careful what you're looking for. Because no matter how bad you want to see it, you may not be ready for it. So
That's 100%.
was it like somebody was opening the curtain to look at you, or closing the curtain so you couldn't see in?
The curtain was, it's a small house. So we were looking in the window and we could see across to like the window that was on the other wall.
Oh, so it was a curtain on the other wall?
Yeah. Yeah. So we like kind of looked in, and the moon was full that night. I specifically remember that because I think I made a full moon joke. And so all you could see was the way the moonlight was hitting this angle, you could see right into the keeper's house, and the other curtain moved aside, um, as if someone was pulling it open, but there was no reason. It's not like it was blocking our view to see inside the house. There was no reason for it to move by any means.
Well, anybody that knows, I mean, listen, I've never had a curtain on a curtain rod that is sliding open or closed because of the AC. I can barely get them to slide open and
I was
closed.
giving a lot of credit to this North Florida AC unit.
I guess so. I guess so. Oh, wow. I mean,
And if your curtain rods are like mine, they'll get stuck. And this
yeah,
this did not get stuck at all.
exactly. Exactly. That is, oh my gosh. I'm kind of sad about this story because I feel like this could have been so much more if you just would have stayed. Like,
Oh, get stuck around. Yeah. No, I go. I got curfew. I gotta go back. But I think the sweetest thing was it was just so cute because I wasn't gonna tell my husband because I didn't want to spook him out, and he wasn't gonna tell me because he didn't want to spook
oh,
me out. But we had
that's
both seen it.
that's so nice of you guys. And so,
So then
jeez.
it continues. Are you? So I get stationed in Jacksonville, Florida. I joined the military to get out of Florida. That's where I spent my whole, besides deployment, I spent my whole career in Florida.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
but Jacksonville's not, it's not a spooky, Pensacola has got historic places, and I'm sure Jacksonville does too, but there's nothing spooky about the base. I worked overnights, which I love. And I went to the airplane graveyard, which was about a mile down the airfield. It was about a mile from our hangar. Um, and so my petty officer and we walked out there, and he realized, oh, I forgot some tools. Start taking apart these wires and I'll come back. So I'm in this, I worked on P8s. They're essentially 747s, but instead of passenger seats, it's like an office. They do P8s do um, reconnaissance, surveillance, rescue, so that they can do a lot. And I'm just hanging out there. It's about 2 a.m, and I get out my phone. No EMF reader this time. But I Snapchat my husband and my brother, and we weren't supposed to have our phones out there, but whatever. I'm not like an honorable discharge. I can say whatever. Um, and I said I'm kind of spooked out, but I just feel like I need to record something right now. And so I say whatever I said to them, and then I turn the camera so it looks down the tube, which is, I'm at the back of the airplane, so I'm looking down, and I shine the flashlight and I go, see, it's kind of spooky. I save the video before I send it. And then I finish my work. My petty officer comes back and we go back to the shop. I decided I'm going to take a look at that video I saved. So I pull it up. And sure enough, when I turn the camera, after a couple seconds, an orb comes across the screen, and not like, dust particles, not like this was, I've watched enough, Ghost Adventures that I know what an orb is. And I go, you got to be kidding me. And there's nothing, these are really fairly new aircrafts. Like there's no reason anything should be, residual on that plane. And so the next morning when I got home, I asked my husband, I go, hey, did you see anything in that snap I sent? And he goes, no, wait, was there something? I go, I saved it and I pulled it up, and he saw it right away. He goes, that's an orb. And I go, it could be dust. That plane has been out of commission for like 3 months. He goes, Lexi, that's not dust. And so of course, we had to show it to our friends, and they go, yeah, that's not dust. That's an orb. And so that concludes my,
So,
paranormal.
so you felt though that like you're there now, were you creeped out just because you're by yourself or because
I
some
was
other
by
stuff?
myself. I'm a mile away from the shop. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't like going on the planes when they're not turned on. Like once I've obviously when the lights are off. Uh, but it was just, even with a flashlight in there, I just did not like what I was feeling. So it was kind of a joke, but like in the event that I die on this plane, my husband and my brother have proof.
Oh my
I
gosh.
really saying this to Shane. I poke the bear, and the bear kind of,
Well, it seems to me like something's trying to get your attention, and you're kind of like,
you're not my real dad kind of thing.
yeah, you're just kind of like, okay, I know my third eye, it can see you, but I'm gonna put it
I
over
put my patch on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, is this now? Did you ever have anything like? Did you ever have any paranormal stuff like before you got to the
Not,
military?
not necessarily like that. Like I said, both my husband and I believe paranormal activity, and uh, you know that there are things beyond our flesh and blood that we deal with, and we don't argue. And like we argue. Hold on. We don't just let argues be. We try to end them, and hey, I'm going to work, but things are okay between us. And the thing that changed that was we got in an argument one morning, and he left for work, and I went back in bed and was just scrolling Instagram, and I didn't say goodbye. And he texted me and he goes, oh, you can watch me leave, but you can't say goodbye. I go, what are you talking about? He said, I saw you pull the blinds. I saw you peek through the blinds and then pull them up. I go, I'm back in bed. And the bed was right next to the blinds. I go, I didn't touch the blinds. They didn't move at all. And he goes, oh, great. I go, believe me, if I pulled the blinds, I would have flipped you off. Like you would have known it was me. And that was creepy. That was because that was, and we've had one other experience like that after a argument. So, you know, you're lying if you say you're not arguing as a couple, but um, we try to not, like, if we're leaving, like if we're not going to the same place, we try to resolve it, or at least, find some even ground that says, hey, hey, I'm mad at you, but we'll deal with this later. But
Oh,
he said the blinds had opened up as if someone was peeking through them, and then they pulled up, and our bed was right next to the blinds. I go, the blinds haven't moved. I mean, I don't.
so whoa. So now wait a
Yeah,
second. He's talking about the blinds right beside you in bed.
blinds and didn't even move. Like the window, our bed was right next to the window, and the blinds were right there. and nothing happened on like my side, like I was just laying there scrolling Instagram and he texted me. He goes, "Oh, you can watch me leave, but you can't say goodbye." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I just saw the blinds open, like you watched me pull away and then you pulled open the blinds." And I said, and he's not he's not dramatic. He's not, when I told him, I go, "I'm in bed just scrolling Instagram." He believed me and, instantly remembered, "Oh yeah, we just had a big fight." Like, so there's just been, bad juju, bad energy, whatever you want to call it. Definitely was, I don't know, but I completely believe. And the last time that happened was like a couple years into our marriage, and we went to bed angry, got in a fight, and I was laying one way and he was laying the other. And uh, I heard a low grumble between us. I didn't hear anything definitive, but he whipped around and said, "What did you say?" And so I go, "I didn't say anything." I kind of start crying. I go, "But I heard something too." So, we prayed about it, and, we talked about what we had gone to sleep angry about. And then from that point on, we agreed that we would not be going to bed angry, because that kind of like, scared straight. So that was before the blinds. And that was like, the blinds was probably year 8 of our marriage. And the grumble was probably about year 3. So it had been a while. And since we had dealt with anything like that.
But they weren't in the same house, because
no, it was in the same town. We were about 3 miles away, but no. And both, it was a new neighborhood too. It's not like the year 3 was.
I hate to break this to you. It's not the neighborhood. Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
You're sitting in the trench, aren't you?
There is something. Okay. I mean, look, I honestly got on here expecting to hear just stuff about the military. And then you're like, "Oh, by the way, there's these couple things like."
Well, you asked, did I have any paranormal experience prior?
I know. And
you were poking the bear.
I know those two. So you're laying in bed looking through Instagram or Snapchat, whatever you kids do nowadays.
Yeah.
Snapchat, Snapgram or InstaChat. Does, like, the minute he says what he saw happen, you have to be covered in like goosebumps, don't you? Or
totally. I go, my heart, like, I got cold and like my heart dropped, like, "Oh, we're dealing with this again." Like the last thing, something that creepy happened after a fight or argument had been like 5 years ago. And so, at first I thought he was, making something bigger than what it is. I go, "What are you talking about? I'm still in bed." Then he called me and he goes, "No, no, no. I saw you peek through the blinds and then you pulled it open." And I go, "I wish I was messing with you, but I'm not. I've just been laying here scrolling through social media." And he goes, "Okay." And as always, I don't even remember what we were arguing about, but we settled it, hung up on good terms, and moved on.
So I wonder what that, like, it's almost like something is like attached to you two, and the negative energy brings it
The darker out. Yeah, yeah. And you could, I don't want to get like on a religious or, faith rant. Like, we think, okay, is it demons messing with that? There are so many variables that you could chalk it up to, but I see the trend that you're noticing.
Yeah, I mean, because every instance that you've talked about is all been
in Florida.
Well, except for the one.
Oh yeah,
like,
except for
it's all been you having something like internal, like you
doubt
having
or
like
mischief, or
yeah, like you're thinking about something, you're feeling
that, or yeah.
or you're trying to protect you're trying to protect your husband from the
I don't. It's weird. I've never thought that not deep into it, but like, "Oh, that was spooky." And then you kind of like move on.
I have to listen. The two things that you just described, it's one thing to, to see stuff happening where you're not sleeping. Okay.
Yes.
But if
Yeah.
something is
Oh, in the house.
growls between you in bed and it's not my stomach, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's,
It was creepy. That I think that's the one probably only time that I was just felt out of control, like terrified to a sense where I don't have control of this situation. This is something bigger than me. And then but it is kind of nice knowing that he heard it too. So then you're not like, oh, I'm crazy. I'm hearing these things. So in that retrospect, I'm thankful that I'm not just getting spooked out alone. I'm sharing the load,
oh God. So,
whether he
so
feels that way or not.
geez, Al, that, okay. Now I'm glad it's still light here in Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me
Um,
too.
because I would not, I've been told some stories while I've been sitting in the office in the dark here, and it has not ended up well. Um, so so I'm just going to ask. So
Yeah.
you didn't have, so there was nothing from your childhood, nothing from your younger adulthood that you can look back and say, like,
Oh, I don't mess with Ouija boards. I don't mess with crystal balls. Um, I don't believe in tarot cards. I guess I only poke fun in my mind, or I only, open that realm. I grew up Southern Baptist, so I don't mess with that stuff. Um, and unless I've repressed it. So, um, you know, if I go to therapy and something opens up, I'll let you know. Hey, Shane, I know it was actually this basement that I grew up in.
now, now I always ask this of
Oh,
all
I lived
the,
in the Amityville horror house. I didn't mention that.
oh, that was all fake anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
um, and I wonder if your husband had anything like, did he ever have any paranormal experiences before? The,
Yes, that's definitely his story to tell. So now I'm guilty by association is what I'm gathering. Yeah, but he knows how to end that stuff. He knows to say goodbye to the Ouija board. He knows, it's not like he's done some super research. So he doesn't do anything haphazardly. So now I've never correlated. This is fascinating. Got a lot to think about.
I know, I know. Well, that's why I'm here to ask the question. This is your paranormal therapy session.
I
Um,
love it.
so, I mean, to me though, there just has to be something like that
That's the missing piece, is what you're saying.
there's two, like the stuff on the military base is one thing, bases is one thing, but to be in your own bedroom is something that is obviously concerned with both of you and your
You
relationship.
make it sound way nicer than I pictured it. Oh, it's concerned about your relationship. Yeah, okay, Shane.
It's concerned.
It's not the vibes I got.
It has a vested interest in seeing that you guys are getting along. Um, I always ask this of all the people that have spent time on military bases, is in a lot of, I mean, you guys obviously didn't spend any time in the ones that are out in the wilderness that have the great, we've already discussed your disdain for Bigfoot. So I know I'm not going to ask any Bigfoot questions, but in your branch that you were in, what's the UFO situation?
Oh man. There's definitely a situation. I wasn't told anything because I was just a lowly E4, but I think I may have seen one or two on on base. Because like I said, I worked overnight and I had just started getting into UFOs. It was before I read Dave Spink's book and had gotten into that. But I asked my petty officer, I go, hey, you know, what's the UFO deal? I go, because either that was a shooting star and I don't think there was any forecasted tonight. He goes, oh, yeah, that's a thing. He said it so nonchalantly. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, air bases, there's just the sightings are higher. And that's all I know. And like I said, I thought I was a shooting star. I haven't done enough research, but I'm way more interested in UFOs than I am Bigfoot.
So an officer just goes, "Oh yeah, it's a thing."
Yeah, and like he was like 2 or 3 ranks above me. He wasn't like super high. But he goes, yeah, like and he was super into history. We would talk about World War II history all the time. And he goes, yeah, like sightings are higher around air bases, whether they're Navy air bases or Air Force air bases. And then he like kept walking. And I think I was just so unshook that I had to process, okay, was it a shooting star? Was it a UFO? What does he mean? Yeah. Like, and I think I got distracted. I think we had to go wash a plane or something. I never followed up.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. Just so haphazard. Yeah, it's a thing. That's a thing.
Oh, okay.
Holy smokes. So I mean, of course, they've had disclosure, and they've just every day we hear more stuff. And while we're recording this, they just came out with, I'm sure you followed it, on the 911 call out in Vegas of what the police officer caught on his body.
They're not humans or something like that is what.
The officer caught on his body cam something falling from the sky.
Oh, okay, no, I'm thinking of something else, but yeah.
Well, no, it's the same one, because then there was a 911 call from some people who said, yeah, there was something in their backyard, and they were 8 to 10 feet tall, and they were not humans. And the one officer came out and he said, I'm going to tell you, the only reason I'm out here is because one of my guys caught something on his body cam. And he goes, I want to see what's going on. And they described it to him. And the officer goes, listen, if those things come back, don't call me. Because I don't know what I would do. He goes, that you're on your own if those things come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. Just do we? Yeah, we weren't taught anything on. Like, it makes you wonder what does the military like what they release stuff and whatnot. But I used to work on cruise ships. That's another story. But we got pirate training because our ships would go into in pirate territory. But like we never got UFO training. I worked on airplanes. You would think, oh yeah, well we've caught on camera these things. Never talked about that.
So even after all that stuff came out, you were still because this was pre-COVID, right?
Yeah, yep.
And they still
the military or
the military. The military.
It was right when COVID hit. I kind of got tired of. I want to be a flight medic, and so they're like, "Oh, the military can help you with that." And so I joined. April 25th, 2020, was when I started, and then I was in for a contract, and then I got out. So,
I don't even want to know the paranormal that happens on a cruise ship, because I have a good idea.
I don't have any paranormal stories. But
listen, I don't think
anybody, I'll send them your way.
I don't think anything normal happens on a cruise ship.
Just the drunk guest.
Just the drunk guest. So we want to talk about, before we got the really good stuff out of you. I knew I'd get a couple more stories out of it. But let's talk about the final girl graphics that you have on
Girl Graphics. Yeah. Final Girl Graphics is my retro pop art. I adore late 60s, early 70s comic book style. I've been doing graphic design for a while, just kind of like a side hustle. And my husband goes, you should like make it official, like make it a thing. So I was racking my brain. He came up with the name Final Girl Graphics because like final girl, like in a horror movie. And so I do logos, I do fun art prints. My most popular is I have this girl and she's wearing sunglasses, and you can see like Christmas trees and Santa flying across, and she's got pumpkin earrings on, and she's just saying it's too soon. And there's like a little teardrop. coming down.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah,
That's
anything
good.
that's like Halloween horror related. I love The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror. I had a Bart Nevermore, Bart as the Raven.
Mhm.
It glows in the dark print that I had at Monster Fest. That was a big seller. So I think Aaron Dees actually grabbed a print.
Oh,
So
Aaron
I was
D.
proud of that. Yeah. So yeah. And from there, so everything I do, I go into the persona Final Girl. Uh, and stemming from that is I do have Final Girl Gossips, which is just a small little podcast. I'm on episode 10, will come out at the end of the month. And I talk about just things that I want to talk about. And I think that's the beauty of having a podcast is I've learned so much. Like one episode, my favorite Aerosmith album is the Nine Lives album. And I talked about the history of that. What does Nine Lives mean? Why did they call it Nine Lives? Why did they have to redo the album art? And so I cover all that, and because I can. So they're about 20, 25 minutes too long. Enough if you've got like a mid drive to work or whatnot. So
Or
see,
7 hours on the mail route. I mean,
exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
See, you can listen to the whole
okay.
season.
I'll get them all in before lunch.
I love that. Boost my listening count. Uh, I will this summer be re-recording the earlier episodes, but they have great um, content. I am very proud of the subjects and whatnot.
Well,
Um,
I know I'm going to go because I just found out about this before we went on the air. So I'm going to go check them out. I hope all our listeners go and check them out because I love all the cool, like the fact that you are covering topics that aren't necessarily mainstream that probably haven't. I've never heard anybody cover the topic of the Nine Lives album by Aerosmith.
well,
Okay.
I painted a canvas, and the Nine Lives album has like a fun wheel that you would throw knives at, and it has a cat on it. And so I painted it on a canvas, but the cat is Scratchy from The Simpsons. And
Okay.
it says Nine Lives on it. And I obviously was listening to the album while painting it. And I just looked it up and was doing, research on the cover. And I thought this would make a great podcast episode. But I love paranormal stuff. I love true crime. Everything. I love everything that there's already podcasts about. So my first episode ever is about Smokey the Bear and his history. And that audio is awful, as I told you before we started recording. But the content's great. I learned so much, and that's fun. And who knows? It may help you at the next trivia night. If you
There you
win a
go.
beer, send me a shout out.
There you go. That's always helpful. I mean, that is the biggest thing. I feel like,
That's why we listen on a podcast, right? So we
yeah,
can win free beer at trivia night.
exactly. And I don't even drink, but if I could win somebody else a free beer, that
Or I just like bragging rights. That's, I'll do anything for a free t-shirt.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Every time you listen to a podcast, you feel like you slept at a Holiday Inn Express, right? Well, Lexi, I appreciate the fact that you, number one, that you tried a podcast and are 10 episodes into it, just because.
I do all the art for it. If you go to Final Girl
Oh my
Gossip, all
gosh.
the art is on there. I'm on YouTube. I'm very behind on the YouTube episodes, but the first 3 episodes, I do time lapse art over the podcast. So you can listen to the podcast and see time lapse of art that goes with to that and, other visuals that go with the podcast. So that's fun too. A little fun snippet.
You know what, Lexi? And we're just starting putting video up on YouTube, and we're like 400
That's like you need
episodes
an
in.
animator.
We're just,
Okay, fair enough.
we're just 400. We're only 400 episodes in, and we're just now getting video up. And you're like doing time lapse artwork. You're making the rest of us look bad. You're making us look really
Just gotta try.
bad.
That's all.
Holy smokes! Well, I hope everybody goes and checks out Fangirl or Final Girl Graphics at Instagram. Checks out your artwork. Go,
Final Girl Gossip is on Instagram as well.
yeah, there's a link there on your Instagram, and I'll make sure Phil or the new the oh gosh, I put up the question, what should we call Phil? Because we call Jason the super producer. We've had so many nicknames suggested. Phil is not really thrilled with all of them. but we're still working on what to come up. So for now, we'll just call.
To be filtermined.
Oh, geez. So yeah, we'll put a link up to your podcast so people can go check it out, because I think it sounds cool. It sounds cool. I love
Thank you.
that. I love that you have that interest, and you've turned in passion and turned it into something. And just being creative is, I always appreciate everybody creative. I mean, I would have just loved to have you on the podcast just to talk about your artwork.
Oh,
The
yeah, that sounds like another episode.
the ghost stories are just the bonus, the icing on the
Totally.
top. So, but thanks for sharing them with me. And if you get into therapy and you do find out what is, or you start
My
talking to
grandma's a witch doctor or something. Yeah, like I don't know.
or you talk to your husband and you're like, dude, you're to blame for all this. I want to know.
I need you to call Shane and
I need to know.
do your own episode.
So, hey, thanks so much for coming and hanging out for a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.